Hello.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Good evening.
How is it in Cincinnati?
Yeah, it's fine. Winter starts.
Winter started. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
You look very much American now.
I don't think so.
I heard that you were cutting short your stay there, is it?
Yeah. Due to the demise of my younger brother,
Oh,
I requested for early departure. I will return 2 months ahead of the time. I'll reach Aizawl on 10 November.
I'm not informed about this news. Hmm.
Yeah, you may not be. Hmm. My younger brother passed away on August 29.
Oh,
And
I see.
anyway, I have completed my project work now. So
Oh,
Fulbright also consented to my request. Hmm.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
Hmm.
I see. So sad. Hmm.
Yeah. What to do? Trantona mi
Hello.
bena.
Hello. Am I audible? Hmm. So we can start the program, right? Okay. Greetings, everyone. On behalf of the Mizoram Christian College and on behalf of the Department of Political Science, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all who are present and participating here at this international seminar. I should point out that besides Zoom as our platform, we're also live streaming it at YouTube. Our official channel is Mizoram Christian College official channel so uh, you can check there if the Zoom seat capacity is full. So as a relatively new educational institution, barely just 1 year old, we at Mizoram Christian College genuinely feel that this is a very special occasion for us, as this marks our first international webinar solely organized as a college, and even more special and privileged to have such a distinguished academician, Professor Dongel, as our resource person, who will be giving a lecture on the evolution and changing dimension of the inner line regulation. The issues of inner line regulation have been a strong point of contention, especially in the northeast region of India, but particularly where certain states have certain states require and certain states demand certain amount of inner line permit and inner line regulation. So the rationale for this webinar, therefore, is to become more educated in our approach to how we view the issues of the interstate relations, why certain states have inner line regulation, and hopefully to find solutions for better interstate relations. So before we call upon our resource person, Professor Dongel, we have a special address by our respected principal. This may be an opportune time for me to also state that as as students and faculties of this college are so fortunate to have such a respected principal, not only, who is respected not only in the realms of theology, but also in the field of academics, who had written seminal topics on issues of autonomy and regionalism. Our principal has had a wide range of careers spanning decades. He started as a teacher at Government Country School. Then he became a lecturer and a vice principal at Government Aizawl College. Then he became, development secretary in South India. He was also a principal at Serampur College, a record, to be exact, as the longest serving principal of Serampur College. And he was also the chairman of the Mizoram Board of School Education. And he is also a visiting fellow of Aizawl Theological College. And currently he is our respected and beloved principal of our Mizoram Christian College. And besides what I have just mentioned, also his career spans over so many other areas in academics, social work, and Christian ministry. He has also written a formative and a very pivotal book called Mizoram Politics of Regionalism and National Integration, which I feel truly still stands as the point of reference and a point of influence in the field of academics. So with that, let me allow me to call upon our respected principal, Reverend Dr. Tsungnuma, to deliver a special address for this webinar.
Thank you, Ben, for your nice words of introduction about me. Yes, I'm really happy to be your principal. I feel one thing I often say to people is that uh, I have been working again with very youthful teachers and very promising students, and this makes me uh, feel younger again. This makes me feel youthful. So I'm really happy to be with my dear youthful colleagues and promising students. And tonight, I'm really happy that we have Professor Dongle, good friend of mine, to be our resource person. Though, in spite of his busy schedules in USA, Cincinnati, he is willing to be our resource person. I'm confident and very sure that we'll learn a lot of things from him. I've seen him on public platforms, through media, interviews and symposia and discussion, and his presentation has always been appreciable, very much appreciated by all who hear. And his presentations, so far as I'm concerned, have been very systematic, very studious, and very deep in analysis. So we are very fortunate to have Professor Dongle in our midst tonight. I hope and I'm sure that if you listen well, you will learn a lot of things from him tonight. I wish to request um, our colleagues and our students to be very attentive to what he is saying. And I welcome on behalf of all of us and on my behalf, I welcome Professor Dongle, who will be addressing us tonight. So I'm glad that this Mizoram Christian College uh, Department of Political Science has taken initiative in organizing this first international seminar, webinar um, um, of the college. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Rembrota. Thank you, all the other colleagues, PC, who have been supportive on this kind of things, and many other colleagues who have been very positive and supportive. And I hope this webinar will be a very grand success with the active participation of all of you. With these few words, I comment the presentation that is coming, and I'm welcoming all of you, and I wish you all a very good, smooth functioning in conducting this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, respected principal, for the special address. So coming to our main event now, let me share a selected portion of the vast academic achievements of our resource person, Professor Dongle. Professor Dongle, started as a lecturer at Bethany Christian College at Churachandpur, Manipur, and he continued to become a faculty member at Government Longthai College in Mizoram. Then he joined the Department of Political Science at Mizoram University as an associate professor on 10 July 2012 and promoted to the rank of professor on 10 July 2015. And besides teaching at Mizoram University, he's currently residing at the University of Cincinnati, Ohio State, United States of America, as a Fulbright Senior Research Fellow. He has published 28 papers in journal, 25 papers in edited volumes, and 4 papers in proceedings. He has also delivered 23 lectures as speakers of international and international webinar and online workshops in different webinar programs up until now. And he has evaluated 23 PhD theses and 8 MPhil dissertations of different universities. He also successfully guided 4 PhDs and 10 MPhil scholars. He now has 8 PhD scholars working under his guidance. He has authored 4 books, edited 1 book, and co-edited 2 books. His influential works, especially on the 6th schedule, autonomy movements, regionalism, and border issues, are having a huge impact and is a great asset for the academics and for the state government. So before I hand over the rest of the time to our resource person, I would like to request everyone to mute our audio so that there are no interruptions during the lecture. Any questions should be asked either through the Zoom chat box or through the YouTube live chat. So without much further ado, we shall now call upon Professor Dongel to deliver his lecture.
Thank you, Ben, for the introduction and for giving me the time to interact. And I'm thankful to MCC for organizing this program. And despite my busy schedule, I cannot refuse program request from MCC. The principal being my good friend and faculty of the departments, they are my own students. So I feel that it is my duty to work with them. And as this program has been organized, now I'll deliberate on the evolution and changing dimension of the inner line regulation. As we all know, this inner line regulation is a very important and hot topic in northeastern part of the country. And because of this very regulation, I can say that we are safeguarded. We are safeguarded from assimilation. We are safeguarded from discrimination, and we are in the position to protect our land and ourselves because of this regulation. Okay, now let me start with the introduction. So this inner line regulation is the most talked about governmental regulation in northeastern part of the country since colonial rule. And this inner line regulation, it is a unique regulation for preservation and protection of minority hill tribes and for security of people in the plain. Actually, the focus is not only the hill tribe or hill people. It is for safeguarding both the hill tribes and those people of the plain in the plain area. And the focus of the regulation since its very inception was particularly hill tribes in eastern region of Bengal. During that time, there was no province, as we know. And most of the hill tribes covered by this inner line regulation were colonized by British. Before colonization of British, these hill territories were neither colonized by plain area or mainland India. They were in the British authority knew the from the plain Hindus and Muslims, such as custom, culture, tradition, and it should be noted that during that time, when some tribals who assimilated with the plain society, some tribe and they were already assimilated the hill territories, hill tribes in the hill. They were quite different regulation, acts, and laws had been enforced specifically regarding these tribals in land regulation originally focused upon among the plain tribes or among the regulation continued to be enforced in the hills and northeast frontier trade, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Arunachal Pradesh, and Manipur, particularly, so to say, among the non-tribal. We shall move to the historical background. So what was the historical background of these tribal territories and how they were annexed to the British Empire? East India Company came so close to tribal territories in eastern domain of Diwani or revenue of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa by Robert Clive in 1766-65 from Mughal Emperor Shah Alam. Robert Clive, he recognized Shah Alam as Emperor of India and of Oudh, but that was namesake of and Shuja-ud-Dawla as ruler of Oudh, enabled the East India to Assam, Arakan, and with tribals in hill territories of hill tribes of eastern frontier of Bengal, whom the British came into contact. And after contacting with the Garos, the British authority came to know the peculiarity of tribal people in hill territories of eastern Bengal and Assam. And David Scott, who was the magistrate at Rangpur, played significant role in the annexation of Garo Hills and Kha Hills, and prior to the coming of British colonialism, tribal territories in Northeast India, they were neither priests were independent in their own way, ruled by the convention, and they were nationalized and subjugated. In the era, these tribal people, the East India Company, got the opportunity.
Oh, sir, in break the sir, internet game, eng ma contract hello.
Yeah, kalau lu cari ada ni. Oh. Oh.
It seems that our resource person, it seems that his internet is he's facing internet problem. So let us wait for a few minutes before he re-enter and continue his lecture.
Professor Donald, if you're ready, we can continue again.
Bena, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, should I start again from the beginning?
As you wish, sir. You can start from anywhere.
You know, I mean, if it is
It's up
not
to you.
properly audible, it will be better to start from the beginning.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, there was technical problem. I didn't know that you could not hear my voice. Let's hope that it will be all right now. So uh, I don't know how far you understand my voice. So let me start from the beginning again with introduction. So this inner line regulation is the talk about governmental regulation in region of India, and it is a unique regulation for preservation and protection of minority hill tribes in eastern region of Bengal. And the focus of the regulation sits in protection and safeguard Bengal. Most of were not colonized by any pre-British period. After contact with these hill tribes, in all aspects of life from the plain Hindu tradition, ethnicity, social behavior, and political contact with these hill tribes, known now as plain tribes. They were the case with those tribals in hill territories. So, due to that, as the British felt that these hill tribes need to be protected, and on the other hand, those people in the plain should also be protected from surprise attacks and raids of the hill people. And due to that, the British felt that something was necessary to be done in order that both the hills and the plains should be safe. And the British authority also felt that these people in the hill territory could not be governed by the same rules, laws, and regulations which were enforced tribals in hill territories. Different regulations, acts, and laws had been enforced. And this inner line regulation was one of such regulation which was enforced exclusively among the focus of this inner line regulation was the enforced among the plain tribes
Ex-
and among
e-
hill people.
Excuse me,
And after independence of undivided Assam, am I audible?
No, sir.
excuse me, sir.
It's coming again. Actually, it's coming again. There's a break in your voice and your video.
You have net problem, sir.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yes.
Shall I carry on? Am I
Actually,
audible?
Okay.
actually,
It's fine.
actually,
Let's start.
the audio is all right, but the video there's a break, and I think that leads to the break of the audio, sir. Can you try with muting the audio and only with the voice? Can it be done?
Okay. Is it better?
Like that, it's much better, sir.
Okay. Okay, let me carry on with this. Yeah. Okay. So let me carry on, and continue to be enforced in 3 hill districts of Assam: Naga Hills, Northeast Frontier Tracts, and Mizoram, which later on came to be known as Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, and Mizoram. And the regulation was not continued to be enforced in some hill districts, but recently it has been introduced in non-tribal dominated area in Manipur Valley. And now the historical background of tribal areas starting from pre-colonial era. The British East India Company came so close to tribal territories of Northeast India with the acquirement of Diwani or revenue of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa by Robert Clive from Mughal Emperor Shah Alam in 1765. Robert Clive, he recognized Shah Alam as Mughal Emperor or Emperor of India, and Shuja ud Dawla as ruler of Oudh. And ruler of Oudh, revenue was controlled by the British. And with the acquirement of Diwani of Bengal, the British East India Company had the opportunity to reach the border of Sikkim, Bhutan, Coach Bihar, Assam, Garo Hills, and Khasi Company to make contact with the hill tribes. And Garo tribe was the first among the tribes the hill tribes of
1.5 kilometers. 1.5 feet more. 1.5 feet.
Eastern Bengal, British came into contact, and the British came to know the uniqueness and peculiarity of tribals in hill territories of and the British court was part of Assam, North India, ruled by their tradition, and they were neither Roman rule. They were independent people. So, in pre-colonial territories, they were independent in the internal administration of. Apa boy club be? Oh.
Sarben. Sarben, please take over, please.
Okay, there seems to be a technical problem on the side of Professor Dongel. We regret the inconveniences caused, so we'll try to figure out the technical issue. So we'll try to get back as soon as possible. Okay, please stay with us.
Bena. Hello. Am I
You're
audible?
audible. You're audible, sir. Yes, sir.
Let me off my video.
Okay, sir.
Hmm. Hmm. Let me off my video, and in case of any technical problem, please inform me through my mobile. Let me carry on. So the British East India Company got opportunity to interfere in internal administration of a home kingdom because of Maumeri rebellion. And as Maumeri rebellion was so severe, a home ruler Gaurianath, he could no longer control it. So he sought assistance of Lumsden, who was British collector at Rangpur, to help him in subduing this Maumeri rebellion. And Lumsden sent Captain Wales to punish these rebels. And with the help of British forces led by Captain Wales, Maumeri rebellion was subdued. And during that time, different parts of Northeast India, Manipur Valley and Brahmaputra Valley, were invaded by Burmese army. And the British authority came to know that Burmese were stumbling block for their colonial expansion in eastern frontier of Bengal. So the British forces and Burmese fought war known as First Anglo-Burmese War of 1824 to 1826, and the Burmese were defeated and they withdrew from Brahmaputra Valley and Manipur Valley. And Colonel Richard, he commanded the British forces, and David Scott also played significant role in the victory of the British over the Burmese. Then the British forces moved as far as from the capital of Lower Burma, and a treaty was signed with the King of Ava on February 24, 1826, popularly known as Treaty of Yandabo. And by this treaty, British acquired the control of entire Brahmaputra Valley, and it was attached to Bengal as Chief Commissioner Province, and David Scott was appointed as the first Commissioner of the province. And after that, Upper Assam was annexed by the British after Purandar Singh, a home prince, was given pension. In such a way, British colonialism started in Assam. And this province of Assam, it was creation of British colonialism for its own administrative conveniences. And with the creation of this British created province of Assam, tribal territories were annexed to this province one after another. Garo Hills was the first to be annexed before the signing of Treaty of Yandabo in 1822. Then Golpara was added to Assam in 1832. Khasi Hills was annexed in 1835. North Kasar Hills in 1854. Naga Hills in 1866. Zentia Hills in 1883. Northeast Frontier Tracts was occupied since 1842 and annexation was completed in 1914. And Lusai Hills was occupied since 1890 and it was annexed to British Empire, or so to say province of Assam, on 6 September 1895. So the British authority came to know that tribals in hill territories have peculiar custom, culture, social behavior, and traditional administration of chieftainship, which were totally different from people of the plains. And the British authority also felt that laws, regulation, and rules which were enforced in the plain may not be applicable in the hill territories. Due to that, some laws, regulations, and ordinances were specifically enforced for preservation and protection of the tribal culture the custom, culture, tradition, and land of tribal people, which should be listed as Regulation 10 of 1822, Garo Hills Act 1869, Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation 1873, Scheduled District Act 1874, Chin Hills Regulation 1896, Government of India Act of 1919, and Government of India Act of 1935. And during that time, Manipur and Tripura, they were princely states, so they were dealt differently by the British authority with internal autonomy. Royal family of Manipur and Tripura continued as ruler, but though they were recognized as ruler, they were princely state. Even with regard to Manipur and Tripura, coinage, defense, and external affairs were in the hands of British authority. So the above stated exclusive regulation, ordinance, and rules were not exactly enforced among tribals in Manipur hill areas and Tripura, but they were also governed by the spirit of the above mentioned exclusive law. The colonial administrator demarcated tribal territories in the province of Assam, but there was no proper demarcation of boundary on the basis of historical facts and historical records when hill territories were annexed in the British created province of Assam. Ever since the annexation of Kachar by British authority in 1832, local British authority had to deal with incursion of people from Lusa Hills. And the rapid expansion of tea garden with the discovery of tea plants at Kasal district of Assam in 1831 also had negative impacts among the hill tribes, especially people of Lusa Hills. Likewise, intrusion of tribal ancestral land by establishment of tea garden in the foothills also led to frequent raids of plain areas from hill tribes, namely Naga Hills, Northeast Frontier Tracts, Khasi Hills, Jantia Hills, and Garo Hills. Tea garden was expanded in foothill, which were claimed as the domain of tribal chief in pre-colonial era, and many of the foothills were also declared as reserve forests by colonial administration. With the creation of new states from tribal territories after independence, reserve forests are now the bone of contention in the boundary dispute between Assam and its neighboring states, namely Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Mizoram, and Nagaland. And now we shall move on to genesis and development of inner line, genesis of the inner line regulation. The British authority was so concerned with hill tribes in eastern frontiers of Bengal, namely Kamrup, Garo Hills, Khasi Jantia Hills, Naga Hills, Kachar, and Chittagong Hill Tract. And not a socio-geographical identity till 1850 because they had no much contact with outside world in pre-colonial era. Garo Hills, which was the first to be annexed to British Empire, had also been often disturbed by plunder by Zamindar with false collection of revenue, which often led to raid and surprise attack in the plains by the Garo tribe. Therefore, the British authority, particularly Governor General in Council, was quite apprehensive about this law and order problem, which often arose due to angle of the hill tribes. As trickery and discriminate negative impact upon the British Empire among the hill tribe, it was necessary to make an administrative arrangement where the hills and plains did not meet often. The British authority also felt that speculators and traders from the plain should be prevented from visiting the hill territories to extract natural resources and forest products of the hills such as timber, jute, rubber, etc. Over and above that, if the plain speculators and traders were not checked effectively, commercial interests of the British Empire would be affected, and it would also lead to law and order problem between hills and plains. It was felt that unnecessary extension of tea garden should be restricted so as not to anger the hill tribes. So the solution for not letting the hills and plains meet often was facilitated by the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation 1873, and it was prepared on the basis of the provision provided in the Government of India Act of 1870, as making laws and regulations for certain parts of India for specific purposes was provided in first paragraph, section 1 of the Government of India Act of 1870. The Lieutenant Governor of Bengal had proposed draft in the line regulation for peace and good governance in the district of Kamrup, Darang, Nagaon, Sibsagar, Lakhimpur, Garo Hills, Khasi Jantia Hills, Naga Hills, Kachar, and Chittagong Hill Tract. And is empowered by this section 1 of Government of India Act of 1870 and with the knowledge of Governor General in Council. This was enforced with effect from 27 August 1873 in these 10 hill districts of eastern frontier of Bengal. Namely Kamrup, Darang, Nagaon, Sibsagar, Lakhimpur, Garo Hills, Khasi Jantia Hills, Naga Hills, Chittagong, and Chittagong Hill Tracts. So in these 10 hill districts, Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation became effective with effect from 27 August 1873. The British authority was so concerned about the appearance of plain businessmen and speculators in the hill territories, products and mineral resources in the hill territories. On the other hand, and surprise attack in the plains, whenever British territory in the plains, steps were required to be taken up to preserve and raise of people of the hills. So solution of the plains and hills meet often, which was possible. The line was first coined by Arthur House, who used it as a neutral notification was issued by the government. Naga Hills had collected posa and they maintained good relationships. They did not have relationship at all with food hills adjacent to Sibsagar in Naga Hills. And British colonial ruler had the intention of extracting rubble from Naga Hills and Shingpo territory, but they did not want to act hastily. In a query by T.H. Thornton with regard to existence of tea garden in administered Naga Hills, S.O.B. Ridsdale, Secretary to the Chief Commissioner of Assam, clarified on 29 May 1876 that the notion of existence of tea garden beyond the inner line was misconception. Even if some planters collected seeds from wild tea plants beyond inner line, such should not be claimed as tea garden, he added. The exact nature of inner line regulation was to restrict the free entry of people from administered revenue settlement to unadministered scheduled district area. So this inner line has been redrawn from time to time for administrative convenience of the colonial ruler, whether it be in Sibsagar, Naga Hills, Kachar, or Lusai Hills. the British authority thought that it was necessary to protect the plainsmen from surprise attack and raid of the wild tribes, and wild tribes were also required to be protected from various exploitation methods of the plainsmen. So Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation of 1873 was framed to meet such stated requirement. The Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation of 1873, popularly known as the Inner Line Regulation, was the law promulgated among the hill tribes for peace and good governance of eastern frontier of Bengal, of which Assam was a part at that time. In such a way, as I've already mentioned, in the 10 hill districts, Inner Line Regulation was in force with effect from 27 August 1873 in the tribal dominated areas of Kamrup, Darang, Naugong, Sibsagar, Lakhimpur, Garo Hills, Khasi Jantia Hills, Naga Hills, Kachar and Chittagong Hill tracts. And then what was the speciality of this inner line regulation? Under the provision of inner line regulation, imaginary boundary was drawn beyond which any plain people or British subjects were not allowed to enter hill territory without valid permission of the concerned British authority. And anyone entering tribal territory without valid permit could be fined from rupees 100 to rupees 500. And depending upon the seriousness of the case, those who were caught violating the law, besides the fine, they could also be imprisoned up to 3 months. And one thing that we have to know is that rupees 100 to rupees 500 in 1873 currency value, it is not a small amount. In fact, it was heavy fine. So if we compare to the currency value present, the amount is so big. That's why it was not a small amount. So these 10 hill districts and Golpora, these 10 hill districts where in the line regulation was enforced, along with Golpora, were put under the jurisdiction of Governor General in Council by the Government of India of 1854. And when the Chief Commissioner Province of Assam was created by reorganizing geographical area of Bengal in 1874, in the line regulation continued to be enforced in the above mentioned hill districts. Over and above that, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So, and in hill districts where in the line was enforced, Scheduled District Act 1874 was promulgated again, but in the line continue on. And these districts were known as Scheduled District by the Scheduled District Act of 1874. Then what is meant by this Scheduled District? Scheduled District means those backward tribal areas were identified or scheduled out to be governed with specific laws and regulations. That's why they were known as Scheduled District. And the term Scheduled District was changed into backward tracts by the Government of India of 1919. And backward tracts was further changed into excluded and partially excluded area by the Government of India of 1935. And even after these tribal areas, tribal territories were declared as scheduled districts, backward tracts, and excluded and partially excluded area in the line regulation continue to be enforced. And with regard to this in the line regulation, beyond the limit fixed by the inner line regulation, it was that there were wild tribes with whom the British followed policy of minimum interference. The British did not want to interfere in the internal administration of these hill tribes. As we know, the main purpose is coming to India was commercial gain were not productive from revenue point of view. On the other hand, they could not totally disturbance of British territories in the. As per this regulation, any British subjects or foreign national or Indian plainsmen who would like to go beyond this in the line, they should get special permission or pass from the nearest deputy commissioner. And any holder of such in the line pass, whether they were British subjects or other person, they could visit the inner line area. And if anyone was found visiting the area without valid permission of the concerned British authority, they could be fined, as I've already mentioned, from rupees 100 to rupees 500. And depending on the seriousness of the case, they could be imprisoned up to 3 months. And the economic and commercial objective of this inner line were threefold: to regulate the trade in Indian rubber between the hills and British traders, to control the extension of tea plantation in the hill areas, and to regulate the transfer of land in these tribal areas. So the main aim of the British in enforcing this in the line regulation was to avoid direct confrontation with wild tribes in hill area. And in the line regulation also clearly states that in the line was defined merely for purpose of orderly civil jurisdiction of the district authority. It was purely an administrative measure, and it was never enforced to curb the movement and activities of hillmen across the line, but the main purpose was to protect him from economic, political, and social exploitation of the outsiders and plainsmen, whereas hillmen or hill people were restricted to conduct raid and surprise attack upon British subjects in the plain. So this in the line regulation fixed imaginary boundary, beyond which, if that imaginary boundary or if that line is to be crossed, valid permission of the concerned British authority was required in such a way so that as the British fare, they should not mix up so that there will be no law and order problem. Hill people should be protected, their land, custom, cultural tradition, ethnic identity should be protected from assimilation. And on the other hand, these people could be controlled and they should stop surprise raid and attack in the plain area. And the British authority felt that for the good of both people in the hills and plains, it is also for safety of people of the plain, the British authority. Okay, now in the line regulation has been changed from time to time. And regulation was repealed from Chittagong Hill, and after it was discontinued in Chittagong. And regulation discontinued in Chittagong Hill Trade. In 1948, tribal population in Chittagong Hill Trade was 98%. But as in the land regulation was no longer enforced, so Bengali settlers from the plains, they freely entered Chittagong Hill Trade, and now tribal constitute just 51% of the population in Chittagong Hill Trade. Had in the land regulation been continued to be enforced in Chittagong Hill Trades, tribals in Chittagong Hill Trades who are indigenous people, who are native people, real owners of the land, will not be marginalized as they are now. Then, after this, in the land regulation was repealed from Chittagong in 1903, it was introduced in southern frontier of Kachal district by notification of Government of India on 20 August 1875, and it was declared in Annexel 11. And it was known as in the line on the southern frontier of Kachar in 1875. So with this in the line regulation of 1875, Dusa Hills was not yet under British rule at that time. But due to this declaration of in the line on southern front Qatar 1875, even Lusai Hills was safeguarded, and Lusai Hills was under these in the line regulation, even before Lusai Hills became part of British Empire. So, and this in the line notification issued in 1875 divided and prescribed the boundary between Lusai Hills and Kachal frontier. So with the enforcement of this regulation, British subjects from the plains and anyone were not allowed to cross the inner line and enter Lusai Hills. If they had to enter Lusai Hills, they should get special permission in the line pass from the Deputy Commissioner of Kachar. In such a way, even before Lusai Hills became part of British Empire, Lusai Hills was also governed by this notification of 70. And this notification of 1875 was said to be enforced as a result of agreement between Sok Puilala and British officer. And due to that, till today, it is the standpoint of government of Mizoram and the people of Mizoram. And after that, Lusai Hills became part of British Empire. As I've mentioned earlier, Lusai Hills was occupied since 1890, but it was annexed Empire on 6 September 1895. Then, in both Lusai Hills and Chin Hills, modified form of in the land regulation, Chin Hills Regulation 1896 was enforced. And this Chin Hills Regulation 1896 was enforced in Chin Hills, Lusai Hills, and in all Chin dominated area. All Chin dominated area means in all territories occupied by different tribes of the Zhou ethnic group. This was enforced. And in Lusai Hills, in the line became effective. In the line was enforced with regulation was enforced with effect from 20th August it was was published
Oh, there seems to have been another technical problem. Please bear with us again, okay? We are trying our best
in the
to
Gazette of Assam. Notification was issued on 9 March 1900. And with regard to this issue, why 1875 notification? This notification was to be issued to British officers. C.U. Atchison, for Secretary, British Government of India. It's Lieutenant Johnson, Secretary to the Chief Commissioner of Assam, Lusai Hills. And it passed through three important places, such as Kukichera, Klong River, Dorban, Old Silchar Aizawl Road, National Highway 54 now, National Highway 304, and Baga Bazar, New Silchar Aizawl Road. And this in the line 1875 was confirmed by Northeast map, third edition, sheet number 15, and the map was prepared by Colonel R. Thulier, Surveyor General of India. It was published in September 1893. So, this boundary of Kasal district was defined and gazetted under the inner line regulation 1875, and it was marked by 46 boundary pillar. So, that is addition of the 1875 notification, or so to say, explanation. The British authority took the initiative to extend in the nation in tribal dominated area where it was not enforced earlier. Subsequently, Golpara district, subdivision of Naga Hills, Sadia Frontier Trail, Balipara Frontier Trail collected that some territories of the present Arunachal Pradesh, else while Northeast Frontier Trail were already under original in-the-line regulation notification of 1873 under Lakhimpur. Subdivision of Naga Hills was brought and the Benna, am I audible?
You're audible now, sir.
Okay, let me carry on.
Yes, sir.
So this inner-line regulation was in force. Notification was in force for different hill districts separately by provincial government with the knowledge of governors general in council from time to time. And the inner-line regulation notification was issued 2 times or 3 times or 1 time for each hill districts from time to time by the provincial government. But inner-line regulation also keep on changing by some acts and regulation, such as Amendment and repealing Act of 1897, amending Act of 1903, Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, and Assam Law Acts of 1912, Bengal Eastern Frontier Amendment Regulation 1925, and by virtue of adaptation of law and order of 1950. So, inner line regulation was repealed from Garo Hills by repealing Act of 1897. And from that time onward, inner line regulation discontinued in Garo Hills. So far as Khasi Hills and Jantia Hills were concerned, Khasi Jantia Hills was part of the inner line area when notification was issued in the original notification on 27 August 1873. But it discontinued in Khasi Hills and Jantia Hills also. But specific notification for discontinuation in the two hill district was not found properly. And after independence, President of India issued adaptation order as provided in Article 372, Clause 2 of the Constitution of India. And by this adaptation order, in the land regulation continued to be enforced even after independence with effect from 26 January 1950. But there have been changes in some of the wordings, like citizens and excluded areas have been changed. Not Kasar Hills were concerned. The line notification as part of Kasar district. No new notification was issued. That's why. And so far as Mikir Hills was concerned, as part of Shipsagar, no separate notification was the regulation in the new hill district. In such a way, some tribal areas, some tribal districts, which were part of the original in the line notifications, like Garo Hills, Khasi Hills, Zentia Hills, Mikir Hills, and North Kasar Hills, are now no longer part of in the land regulation, no longer function in this area. And after reorganization of Northeastern state by the Northeastern Area Reorganization Act 1971, this provision was provided for continuation of this nation, and it to be in Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, and Mizoram. And recently, the regulation has been extended in Dimapur district of Nagaland. Whole Nagaland was under in the line regulation, but it was not enforced in Dimapur district. But recently, from December 2019, Dimapur district of Nagaland is also now brought under in the line regulation. And along with that, it is extended to Manipur also. Non-tribal area, it has been enforced. Manipur district of Nagaland and Manipur latest edition. And with regard to Mizoram, as we know, in the line pass can now be issued by Deputy Commissioner Aizol and officers authorized by such as Residential Commissioner of Mizoram House, Deputy Residential Commissioner of Mizoram House at Guwahati, Shillong, and Silchar. Then in the line pass can also be issued for laborers from outside the state only if bona fide settlers of Mizoram act as employer or sponsor of the license holder. And such application may be submitted to deputy employers to sponsor only cases of tribal or I mean laboral, the work which are not locally available. And temporary in the line pass is issued 30 days to visitor or tourists or business Bena, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible now.
Okay, let me conclude it. Let me conclude it. Let me try to conclude it. And after that, I think we can move towards interaction. That will be better.
Okay, sir.
So, the manner how this inner line pass or inner line regulation pass has been issued by Mizoram, the same pattern is followed by Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh also. And the difference with Arunachal Pradesh is that in Arunachal Pradesh, if they are not native settlers of Arunachal Pradesh, any visitor to Arunachal Pradesh, even if they are tribals from northeastern of India, they are required to get in the line from Conservation Authority of Arunachal. So, and in Nagaland also, the same type of issuing permit, which has been followed by Mizoram and Arunachal, has been adopted, and as it is introduced in Manipur from December 2019, and it is mainly due to that intensified Citizens Amendment Act, Anti-Citizens Amendment Act movement. And due to that, in the Citizens Amendment Act, it is mentioned that Citizens Amendment Act CAA applicable in 6 schedule area and in the line area. And due to Northeast in general and Manipur in particular, this the NDA government did another surgical strike like what it did in Jammu and Kashmir. So without any announcement earlier, Article 370 was abrogated. Likewise, without earlier announcement, abruptly in the line has also been enforced in Manipur. And what is the with regard to Manipur, as I've mentioned in the report, in the line focus mainly the hill tribe, but enforcement of in the line among the non-tribal is some content legal question, because many say that it is not as per the original provision of the inner line regulation. In such a way, some controversy has been risen. And now this inner line regulation, it is now enforced in 4 northeastern states, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, and Mizoram. These three states have been in the inner line from the very beginning, and Manipur is recently added in 2019. And the enforcement and extension in non-tribal area has raised some constitutional and legal question, because many say that it is not as per the original provision. And whatever be the case, there are many critics who say that inner line is no longer needed. But in the ground reality, inner line is still needed, and it is still very essential. And had inner line been not there, I've mentioned about Chittagong Hill Tracks, then Tripura. Had inner line been enforced in Chittagong Hill Tracks and Tripura, native people of Tripura and Chittagong Hill Tract may not be marginalized as they are now. And even in the present states like Mizoram, Nagaland, or Arunachal, had in line been not enforced, had been in the line continue, what will be the situation? It will be perfect. It will be those tribal territories, those tribal efforts should be taken so as to reintroduce in such area, and more tribal areas should be brought under this regulation so that their land identity, custom, culture may be protected from the outsider. So there may be many critics, but in the line still has its significance and relevance, so it should continue on. Okay, with this, let me conclude my speech, and sorry for the technical disturbances. And now let me hand over.
Thank you so much, Sir Dongel, for those vast and extensive and informative historical survey of how the inner line regulation came to be. From the lecture, we can also conclude that this inner line regulation, the issues that we have, the problems we have, also kind of stems from the colonial hangover, so to speak, and that colonial hangover somehow stays with us, and we have to, address these kinds of issues in relation with other states or with neighboring states in the Northeast. So thank you, Professor Dongel. And we also regret the inconveniences. The technical issues was somehow beyond our control. So, but we should also give credit where credit is due. We should give praise to Professor Dongel for soldiering through the technical difficulties. And I feel that most of us were still able to grasp the bigger picture and the larger picture of what Sir Dongil was trying to say to us. So yes, we can now follow up with an interactive session on the topic. So depending on the nature of the questions, maybe some questions may be a little bit similar, so we may be able to club them together. And so depending on the nature of those questions, we can prolong the interactive sessions, or maybe 2, 3, 4 questions may suffice. So let me remind once again that if you are going to ask questions, it should be asked through the chats and not through audio. So also I would like to inform in advance that addressing all the questions tonight may be virtually impossible at this time. So I regret the inconveniences and also ask for understanding. So there are a couple of questions here in the chat box, and some of them are quite similar also. So let me try to club together what Lianming Sang, one of our scholars in Mizoram University, PhD scholar, and our third semester political science student here in Mizoram Christian College, Maria H. Kimi, is saying, I think we can club this question together. So the first one, so if you're ready, the question is that, do you think that the inner line permit or the inner line regulation is an obstacle for the economic progress or development of Mizoram? Which, in a similar vein, Lianming Sang has also asked, do you think that the inner line permit will adversely affect tourism, especially in Mizoram? So I think those have similar, we can club them in similar veins. So, so if you are ready, those are the first questions.
See, I've mentioned in my lecture also, if you listen carefully, inner line regulation is exclusive rights and exclusive regulation of the tribal. The question of fundamental rights does not arise. And with regard to tourism, that is, so to say, the propaganda or the slogan raised by some critics from the plain. We should not subscribe to such view. Those who are coming on legal and specific work, their inner line is never denied. It is always issued and it is always accepted by the authority. And the main purpose of this inner line is to control and restrict non-illegal who like to enter Mizoram. Those who come for good purpose, those who come for business, those who try to come for tourists, and those who try to good purpose, their request is never denied. So that question does not arise. Due to that, this inner line regulation, it does not block and it is not a stumbling block to tourism. There is no disturbance.
Okay, thank you, sir. So for the next question, Lal Lomoma, Political Science Department again here, asked that many believe that the inner line permit or the inner line regulation creates a psychological barrier among the Mizo towards the rest of the country. So do you think this is true? As an expert, what are your thoughts on this regard?
That is unfounded opinion. So, as I've said, that may also come up as a result of some negative comment given by the plain area. But even if inner line is enforced, for those outsiders who will come from outside, who would like to visit either Mizoram, Nagaland, or Arunachal Pradesh, they require permit. Is there any harder for people from the state to visit other parts of India or other parts of the world? There is no such harder. It is only, I said, it is only, so to say, psychological comment. It has no reality. In fact, in the line is to restrict entry of illegal entrance. But from outside also, those who come on legal purpose with good purpose, their request is never rejected. And from people inside the state, there is no harder in going outside. So why such question is raised? There is no psychological barrier, there is no barrier, and there is no problem in it.
Yes, I think that is clear enough. Thank you, sir. Another question from PhD scholar Samuel Remruata from our Department of Political Science. There has been conducts of surprise checking on inner line permit among the construction workers and manual laborers conducted by the civil society group like YMA. Is this allowed to be the purview of a non-governmental body? What will be the government of Mizoram stance on this matter? Samuel Remruata is asking.
That is administrative matter. But in some cases, due to insufficiency of police force, with the knowledge of administration and with the knowledge of the police, in coordination with the administration, some work could be done. And what I would like to mention is that even when some different branches of YMA did surprise checking and caught some without valid ILP, they did not take the law into their own hands. They always gave it to the police, and the necessary work has been done by the administration only. So in certain cases, even when YMA, different branches of YMA did surprise checking, they did it only with coordination of administration and police. Even if some are caught without valid permit, they are handed over to police and administration, but they didn't do further work. They didn't take the law into their own hands. They are only helping the administration.
Okay, sir. There's one question from Dr. Tansanga, faculty from Mizoram Christian College. This is a little bit of a factual question. He's asking, sir, with the notification of the inner line regulation in 1875, is it safe to say that Lushai Hills was officially annexed by the British in 1875 and not in 1890?
I think I mentioned clearly in my lecture. The notification 1875 was not Lushai Hills notification. Southern frontier of Kachar Hills in the line. It didn't mention Lushai Hills. So from southern frontier of Lushai Hills, from southern frontier of Kachar, if anyone went to go beyond, they should seek in the line. That's why in southern frontier of Kachar, in the line was enforced by this notification of 1875. But so far as Lushai Hills and Chin Hills were concerned, after Chin-Lushai expedition of 1889-1890, both Chin Hills and Lushai Hills was occupied. Lushai Hills was occupied with effect from 1890, but officially it was annexed to British Empire on 6 September 1895. That is the historical fact. We should not try to change the historical fact. We cannot change historical fact. We should know that. So in the line in Kachar frontier of, southern frontier of Kachar was notified from 1875. Lushai Hills was occupied by British from 1890, and Lushai Hills was annexed to British Empire only from 1895. So annexation of Lushai Hills by British officially, it was with effect from 6 September 1895. Historical fact cannot be changed.
Okay, sir. The next question is from Lomzola Kiangte, who is also a research scholar in our Department of Political Science, MZU. He's asking, sir, do you agree that the ILP is contradicted to fundamental rights to freely move throughout the territory of India, as expressed by some writers?
I think I already I already answered that question, Bena.
No.
As I've mentioned, it is exclusive rights of the tribal. Issue of fundamental rights does not arise.
Okay.
It is exclusive rights of the tribals. So in order that some marginalized people, some people who were weak, certain reservation was required for them. That is granted by the Constitution of India. And this is exclusive rights of the tribal. So question of fundamental rights does not arise. This is unnecessary question.
Another question could be again from Samuel Remruata. His question is that other than the security force personnel and the permanent government servants, do the inner line regulation exempt other citizens to enter the inner line, provided that they are from other states, which is also safeguarded by the inner line regulation? So I think he means by other states who also have inner line regulation like Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, or Lakshadweep.
Yeah, it is as per the regulation, and particularly in the context of Arunachal Pradesh. In the context of Arunachal Pradesh, it is clearly mentioned those people who are not residents of Arunachal Pradesh, even if they are tribal, if they are not native of Arunachal Pradesh, they should get inner line permit. That is mentioned with regard to Arunachal Pradesh, but it is not specifically mentioned with regard to other states.
Also, sir, if you can also see the chat questions, you may also want to answer certain questions which I have missed out also. There are some questions which are of similar nature. Another one here is from Dr. Tansang Asi. Again, it's again a little bit factual and historical. He's asking, in the context of the Lushai Hills, what is the salient difference between the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation of 1873 and that of the Inner Line Regulation of 1875? So what are the main differences between those two? He's asking.
See, that Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation of 1873, it was enforced with effect from 27 August 1873 in 10 hill districts of Eastern Frontier of Bengal: Kamrup, Darang, Naugong, Sibsagar, Lakhimpur, Garo Hills, Khasi Jantia Hills, North Kachar Hills, Kachar, and Chittagong Hill tracts. So in these 10 dominated areas of hill tribes, inner line regulation was enforced with effect from 27 August 1873. I think it's clear. And after that, Kachar was, as I've mentioned, Kachar was already under the original notification of 27 August 1873. But though Kachar was included under the original notification, southern frontier of Kachar was brought by notification which was issued in 1875. It was known as in the line on the southern frontier of Kachar, and it was effective. It was issued on 20th August 1875. So notification of 1873 covered all the 10 hill districts which were dominated by the tribals, but notification of 1875 specifically deal with southern frontier of Qatar. That is the difference. I think it's clear enough.
Yes. Okay, I think we should move on to the last question now. Lomzula Kyangte again asked, Sir, do you expect Mizoram could succeed in her claim of its boundary line with Assam? So we have recent border issues with Assam. Lomzula Kyangte is asking if Mizoram would succeed in her claim.
This is ongoing issue. It is the issue where I cannot say yes or no. It is ongoing issue, and it is a question which has no answer.
Okay, sir. I think, yes, I think that it's ideal that we stop on that note. Thank you so much, Professor Dongel, for the responses. I think that we have learned a lot, not only from the lecture, but also from the interactive session and the questions that we have now. So I think that since there's time constraints and also certain technical difficulties in our internet problem, I think that it's ideal that we stop on that note. So thank you so much, Professor Dongel. Now let me call upon Tilarem Ruata, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, Mizoram Christian College, to offer a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sarvina. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to express my feelings of how fortunate I am to propose or deliver a vote of thanks in such a wonderful event. Even though there are some technical difficulties, the interactive session makes, I think, covers the technical difficulties that we have that we faced during the program. And secondly, I would like to thank the principal and staff of Mizoram Christian College for their non-stop support in the build-up to this international webinar. Specifically, I would like to thank the principal who always supports any kind of academic activities for giving us the opportunity to organize this international webinar. Thirdly, I would like to convey my utmost contentment to the resource person, Professor Jadungal, who, despite his busy schedule, makes time for the success of this webinar. Sir, even though there are technical difficulties, thank you for your intriguing or rather fascinating lecture regarding inner line regulation, which cannot be acquired through local newspapers or news channels, but only through well-read, factual, and reputed academician like you. Your effort and commitment to make the webinar a success, even though despite the technical difficulties, is something which students and young scholars should look upon. We hope to work with you in the future. And once again, sir, thank you for your time. Furthermore, I would like to thank the host, Sir Benjamin Melfakzuala, Assistant Professor and Head, Department of Political Science, Mizoram Christian College, and Sir P.C. Lalngai Izwala, Assistant Professor, Department of Mizoram Christian College, for their tireless effort to make this webinar a success. And also, I would like to thank all the participants for their support and participation amidst the technical difficulties and their patience in these late hours. We pray for your alliance and your support in our future events. Last but not least, I thank the Almighty Father for giving us this opportunity to organize the international webinar on inner line regulation. That is all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarem Rota, for the warm and heartfelt vote of thanks. Again, thank you so much to Professor Dongel. And once again, we also thank everyone who came here and attend our international webinar and stayed through the whole program. So everybody, thank you and good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Căn dâu thể ra ma trán thì mấy.
Yeah. Asialo cook my sir. Interactive session. Kachuanin aron chale pian books here.
Cái tiếng như nó ngay lâu lắm mà lẽ vô in chung anh thì tiếng như vậy này. Asialo tập cái này.
Technical problem kan ne ya Asialo cook ma se.
Yeah.
Yeah, my point ke pokalo no. So why?
Thì khắc close lại rồi.
Session I can.
Yeah. Cần chính là thể ra ma trán thì mấy.